Obviously, I was working between two offices, as I mentioned before, one near our home in Birmingham and the one in London, which was an hour and a half away on the train. So the commute was about 4 hours if you include door to door. Nic was going through a period where he wasn't his normal self. He was binging on Netflix. The house wasn't clean. When I'd get home, he'd say that, you know, cooking and cleaning was women's work. But as far as I know, providing is men's work traditionally if you want. This is another thing with people that gaslight. It's always a joke to them. Whatever they've said that's offensive, whether it is sexist, racist, putting you down, calling you names, it's always you can't take a joke, always your fault. So if you find yourself in that situation and you've articulated how you feel about the way someone has said something to you, and go-to is to defend or deflect instead of acknowledge and try and change, that's a red flag. Team morale in the office was pretty low because the boss was making everyone's life a misery apart from a select few favourites. But we had a plan as a couple that kept me going through the hours of commuting and bullshit at work, and that was to get pregnant and use my 1 year's paid maternity leave. Now that in that time we would be focusing on growing our business full time, which Nic was doing while he was at home, and I was focusing on our growing our clients during my commutes because I had a lot of time, lunch breaks, after work. So I was pretty much non-stop, flat out. It was no surprise that it was harder to get pregnant, but after trying for a year, so remember our wedding is in 18 months time, we're a year in, so I'm kind of speeding through the timeline. I decided to get things tested about 10 months in at the doctor's. During this time of actively trying to get pregnant, even though we were barely seeing each other with him stripping at the weekends, we had both committed to this pregnancy because of our long-term goal. We knew it was going to benefit what we wanted, our vision for the next kind of 3 to 5 years. So I was taking these ovulation home kits, and I pretty much started it from the 3rd month, and for 7 months straight there was no ovulation, which is very rare because my periods are regular. Now we are both competitors, and it was both of our goals to become IFBB pros, so professional bodybuilders, which I am. But he was not. Another red flag is that when you start achieving things, your partner should be happy for you because it's a win for you both. When there is resentment and no support, and you find that arguments or they are unhappy for inexplicable reasons around good things that happen to you, and you find yourself downplaying good news, huge red flag. Obviously, I'm super concerned that I'm not ovulating because if you don't ovulate, you can't get pregnant. So I make an appointment with the NHS. So if you're not familiar with the NHS because you're watching from a different country outside of England, it is free medical care, medical reasons, or you're on birth control that stops you ovulating. Now, I stopped birth control pretty much 3 months into the relationship, not because we were trying for a baby then, but because I was doing my first serious competition, and you don't want to take birth control with that if you want to get super shredded. I've always had super clear skin, no spots, no blemishes, except for the time when I came off the pill. So remember this. I book my appointment, obviously because it's free medical care, it's not immediate. So my appointment given was 7 or 8 weeks. So I give Nic the appointment date because the initial assessment was with me and then the follow-up was with the both of us. And then I break out in acne. And my periods become a little bit irregular in between the time of me waiting for that appointment. So I'm thinking to myself, obviously I've been through puberty a long time ago and I didn't even get spots then. We are literally talking about just birth control related acne. So it was very, very strange that that was happening. But then I was under a lot of stress, so I just assumed it was that. I had my investigations done. The fertility hospital found nothing wrong at all. We did bloods, we did scans, ultrasound, very thorough checks. They put me on letrozole to stimulate multiple egg release. And obviously with Nic wanting to be a pro men's physique athlete, he had a long history of taking steroids, especially testosterone to increase muscle size. But obviously if you take testosterone, it inhibits your natural testosterone from releasing, which makes it harder to impossible to get pregnant, especially if your partner is experiencing fertility issues. So he had committed to stopping taking steroids. We were both doing our part. However, he missed his appointment to get his fertility assessed. My initial thought was that, he was worried about his, masculinity, because it's something that was really important to him. And during the time that he was unemployed, he started watching a lot of Andrew Tate videos and masculinity videos and how to be more, I don't know, I was just always on when I got home. But I thought he was having kind of depression or anxiety issues around that. So I tried to be more sensitive because I know how low and depressed I felt during that time when we were trying for a baby and failing every month, and that sinking feeling every time my period came of just failure. So I made follow-up appointments for him, an extra 3 that he missed, an extra 2 that he missed. The fourth one was scheduled for when we got back from our wedding. But overall, I was so focused on future plans that I didn't stop to kind of sit back and assess what was going on in the present. Nic had been taking steroids since he was 18, so it was a big commitment to him to give those up. So we were both committed to making this happen, and it just was not happening. I feel this huge sense of relief that, there's nothing physically wrong with me being able to have children. I just need to watch my stress levels, which for me, I knew it was temporary with, the financial issues and the traveling, and, we had this long wedding coming up that I was really excited about, and most importantly, we would finally have some quality time away together. Envisioned our dream from the very beginning of being in Thailand together and having an online fitness business, and we were so close to that. Our online coaching business was growing, and I would say it was about 6 months off being in a position where we could move to Thailand and live really well. So although we had a lot of stress in the background, the hard work was really paying off. A couple of months forward to our wedding, this is where it all comes crumbling down and it gets crazy. Arrive in our dream place, Phuket. Our wedding venue is stunning. I managed to negotiate really good prices for our budget. Our family had helped us, especially with the honeymoon venue, because it was $300 a night. So my mum paid half and his parents paid the other half as a wedding gift. Nic is not religious, so we decided to write our own vows, which I had done a couple of months in advance. Nic had forgotten to write his vows. A registrar had asked us for a copy of the vows so he could put on some nice card for the actual wedding. So I had asked him to send a copy. I got a reminder 5 days from the wedding that it hadn't been sent, so I asked him. He said he hadn't done it. He's going to do it now, the day before the wedding comes, and he still hasn't done it. And he says he's just really bad with words. Can you do it for me? Big red flag. It should not be difficult to put down in words what you love about the person you're going to marry. And why I know he's not bad with words is that on social media, he would write these beautiful things about me with no problem. He'd put on either photos of me or photos of us as a couple with these long, beautiful captions, to the point where other women would say, my God, you're so lucky to have someone who expresses their feelings for you so freely, so openly. And in my mind, there was such a mishmash or mix match, I don't know if that's the right, things he would present on social media about us and his feelings for me, and the way that he would express them to me privately, which as an introvert is more important, like how you are together when you're alone rather than what you show other people. I guess it was one of those things where people were telling me, oh, I wish my man would talk about me like that and post me like that. And I kind of felt, oh well, you know, people express love differently. I'm more private, he's more kind of outgoing, outwardly expressing. So I put it down to that. And common sense should have told me that all of those expressions of love were for his audience, for his image, not for me. If you do not know you are dealing with a narcissist or someone who is more concerned with their image and the creation of thus than reality, then you're kind of fighting a battle against ghosts because you don't know you're in a fight. So yeah, so I wrote his wedding vows. Red flag. We are 2 days away from our wedding and we are out with our friends to dinner. About 20 of us at this dinner. Nic does what he has done a couple of times before, which I really do not like. It is deciding to pay for everyone's dinner because our friends have their own cash. Meanwhile, Nic is heavily in debt. Obviously, weddings are expensive, so every kind of spare penny that we had, which was not much because we were on my income alone, was going to the wedding or bills or some of Nic's debt. So we weren't in the position to pay for people's dinner, and he had done that with some of his male clients as well when we go to shows, to pay for their dinner. All of this was for his public image, to appear to be the good guy, the generous guy, to be flash with cash that he did not have. That was my money. And he wanted the thanks and the praise and the recognition for being successful. After dinner, we went to a bar, and one of his female friends, I forget her name now, it begins with an S, but she said, I just find it really weird that Nic is getting married because he's a complete commitment phobe. His relationships never last long. And I thought, what a strange thing to say to someone a couple of days before their wedding. And so obviously I asked him about it, and he got really angry. Just saying, well, you know, she's been in love with me forever. She's a childhood friend. It's just jealousy. Ignore it. But she pops up later again at the wedding, so let's get to that bit. The morning of our wedding, obviously these things are chaotic, and you're kind of dealing with like family, excited mom, nervous mom, everyone's emotions. God, I had my friend Andrea there because she is like me, she's an organizer, so she was really hands-on with it. But his friend, again, the female friend, I cannot remember her name, so not to name people fully anyway, he says to me, now remember in part 1 where I said Nic had a crazy girlfriend who showed up at his house in the early hours or the late hours of the night trying to break windows. She said to me, did you know about the time that Nic's ex-girlfriend found out that he had been cheating with her best friend on her birthday in the club where Nic hadn't turned up, and then went to his house drunk, trying to talk to him, and he had his phone off, so she started screaming and shouting for an explanation. Something along those lines. And I was like, what? Obviously I asked him about it, and he's like, well, that's not really what happened. Like, she wasn't the girl's like best friend or close friend, they just knew of each other. It wasn't like that. I don't know why the exaggeration, like, one thing about narcissists, they'll tell you the truth, but they'll leave out all the stuff that makes them look bad. Or even worse is you'll get oh, I've done some bad things in my time, but I hold my hands up to it. And they'll admit to the stuff that is understandable, forgivable, to make it seem like they're being really forthcoming. But they will leave out the deplorable, despicable, psychopathic stuff, which is going to begin to unfold. And quite frankly, the worst bits took me at least a year to see because I didn't believe it myself. My brain could not understand that people like this exist. Other one, red flag ladies, we've all seen those videos where the bride has asked the husband not to pie her in the face with cake, where he's had an angry reaction to something and like hit her in front of her friends or family, whatever. We've all seen those videos, and it's well known that they are an indication that things will not go well for the marriage. So my one was not cake because that guy loves cake. The champagne that we were supposed to toast our wedding with, he shook, opened, and sprayed all over me. Now, my makeup took hours, my dress was layers of sheer fabric, so you can imagine it became see-through in certain parts, the makeup was running down my face. Photographers also say that when they see stuff like that, they know that it's not gonna last. After an interesting morning of drama and Nick being sick with a stomach bug, things being a bit delayed, emotions running high, we finally start the wedding. And, you know, I'm walking down the aisle, my mum is walking me down the aisle, she's emotional, her dream is coming true, she loves Nick, obviously he's really charming, and she sees him as a son. And I'm walking down the aisle and I see Nick and he's crying and his eyes are, you know, welling up. He knows how to put on a performance and to cry on command, especially in front of an audience or when he's been caught out. But it's only the second time I'd seen him like that. And the first time was when we got legally married in London 2 years prior. And I was having doubts, heavy doubts about us getting married. And he cried with emotion about the thought of losing me. And that kind of convinced me that, you know, this is just all in your head. Just, yeah. So when I saw the tears in his eyes as I was walking down the aisle, the stuff that had happened, you know, earlier just kind of left my head. He was tearing up as he was reading his vows that I wrote. Yeah, the ceremony was beautiful, actually, as was the wedding party. It was, you know, a night to remember. And then in the morning, everything changed. And the decline in our relationship, literally from the wedding day to the morning after, was so rapid, it made my head spin. And it wasn't long till after that we officially broke up. Honeymoon venue, obviously it is a 5-star hotel. We're in these gorgeous pods. It's incredible. And all he could do was complain about the cost, even though our parents had paid for it. The size of the food portions, that there wasn't anything healthy to eat, even though there was. That I was drinking champagne at breakfast. That he didn't like the gym, even though we had a motorbike and could easily get to whatever gym we wanted to get to. And we were only there for 3 days. You know, I just wanted to finally enjoy some downtime with him. He spent a lot of that time making content for social media, like showing off the location, but as soon as the camera was off, back to complaining. And I hadn't seen him like that for a very long time. He's usually only like that when he's sick. So he suffers from really bad eczema, and I've only seen him be like that once when his eczema was really bad. Just constant negativity. And what was supposed to be a beautiful and enjoyable experience was let down by his mood. I was feeling an anticlimax from, you know, the wedding being over. So yeah, it was tricky, but nothing that I felt was serious or a long-term issue. We leave the expensive place after 3 days, which was the original plan anyway, and we start the fitness part of our honeymoon. So it's on a famous street in Chalong, Thailand called Steroid Street, or Soi Thailand, which is its actual name, Fighter Street. It's literally a really long road with Muay Thai gym after Muay Thai gym, bodybuilding gym, CrossFit gyms, fitness cafes. It's just a great environment if you're into fitness. It really did pick the mood up after the luxury part of our honeymoon, which he said he was just doing for me. I'm so sorry I made you suffer through luxury that you did not pay for. Terrible. At least we both enjoyed that part. A lot of his friends were there, especially one guy that he really liked, and he was the co-owner of Unit 27 and one of the healthy fitness cafes, and I know he thought a lot of that guy and wanted to impress him, mainly because that guy was very wealthy, and Nic is drawn to like wealth. He always took issue with being around people that didn't have something to offer him. But his reasoning was that if you spend too much time with people that don't have, you know, ambition or drive or like strong finances, you'll become them. So you need to surround yourself with successful people. So the rationale was there. I just didn't see, again, stupid. I just didn't see that he wanted to be around certain people because he could use them. If you think this part is a little bit crazy, the breakup is where narcissists really shine because the mask is off and you're so traumatized. I needed therapy, and I had therapy for a long time to kind of understand and get my head around everything that happened, because I could not comprehend such evil. So let's start with the first real thing that gave me PTSD. We went on a beach trip with Nic's family to go on jet skis. Now, myself, his mum, and his aunt didn't want to go. I'm not a strong swimmer at all, and I really don't like being far out into the ocean. But Nic was always of the thinking that you should push yourself, push your boundaries. If you have a fear, you should face it. Nothing wrong with that. I actually think that is a healthy way of, you know, growing yourself. So for me, pushing my boundaries is what I'm doing now, which is speaking on camera. If you watch my first videos, I hated it. I was so uncomfortable. And now I'm speaking about things that I've kept inside for so long, and I'm doing it comfortably. So yeah, that's a boundary that I've overcome. But it's not one that could endanger my life. Well, anyway, so he convinces me to get on the jet ski because he's done it a million times. He's a great driver. I should trust him. I should feel safe, which is correct. I should trust him. I should feel safe. You know, he puts my life jacket on really tight. Is really affectionate, and it's the most affectionate he's been since wedding, like 5 days prior. Reluctantly, I get on the back of the jet ski. He's driving, reassuring me on the way. His mum and his aunt are on the sand having drinks where I wanted to be, and I was like racked with fear because he's always been a speed freak. He got so many driving tickets back in the UK when we could not afford to waste any money while he was unemployed from reckless driving. So I know he got off on speed, especially like if it kind of made me feel a bit anxious, because I should live a little. And yeah, we're out with his dad, his cousin, and I think his uncle, and we're going around the rocks. I start to relax a little bit. So I've gone from kind of shaking with fear to kind of being just highly alert and holding on tight. And he decides to go around rocks really fast and takes a sharp turn. And I fly off the jet ski at air, land in the water. and begin to panic. My eyes are burning, I'm swallowing water, I'm kind of fighting even though I've got a life jacket on. The panic and fear is just setting in, and I think I'm gonna die in that moment. And I see him, he's still on the jet ski, and he's not far away, I'd say like 10 meters. Not 10 meters. Like he's about a body and a half away. I can't really describe it, but I can see his face, and he's there. No expression on the eyes, just smirking. So that's what I see when I'm fighting for my life. And I know you're thinking like, but you're wearing a life jacket, like what, why are you fighting for it? That's how it feels when you have a fear of something and it happens and you're in a big tropical ocean. You don't know what's underneath you. You can't see because there's water in your eyes. You're just swallowing salt and there's no one else around. So, like, it's a wide open net. I didn't want to be out that far. I was panicking. And through like the salt water in your eyes, you look and you see within close distance, the person that's supposed to love you most is sat on the jet ski, smirking. Now I hear in the distance jet skis coming back, and it's his dad and I think his uncle. His dad said, "What are you doing? Like, help her, you don't know what's in the ocean." And he's like, "Yeah, I was just waiting for her to calm down. If you calm down, I'll come and get you." So I just was like, "Okay, you're safe. Calm down." And I did. I just relaxed my body. And I was kind of still gasping for air because even though my body was still, I was still struggling to keep my head up and to stop swallowing water. So he kind of slowly comes towards me while his dad was kind of not far away, and puts me back on the jet ski. And I say, "Please take me back to shore." And he does. He and his dad is watching the whole time. He was like, drive slow, drive carefully. I started to calm down a little bit, but in the following days, I had really bad insomnia because all I could see was what I felt was my life flashing before my eyes. And don't get me wrong, I do understand that I had a life jacket on and I probably wasn't going to die. But at that time I felt that, and all I could see was this deadness behind the eyes with a smirk. And every time I tried to close my eyes to sleep, that's what I saw. So I'd say around that time, through lack of sleep, rising anxiety, my mental health wasn't the best. All of the stress with not being pregnant, our plan not working, and me having maternity leave and like leaving this stressful job. And it got to the point where when we got back home, I mentioned how I felt, and he said, "You're exaggerating because it's your fear, like don't make a big deal out of it," or he'd laugh. So I brought it up a couple of times and then I didn't bring it up again. But yeah, I was really struggling and I was starting to feel really alone. Like, you're supposed to be able to talk to your partner, your best friend about anything, but I was feeling really alone when we got back, with work, with anxiety, feeling like a failure, these constant flashbacks every time I closed my eyes of the jet ski and feeling that I was going to die. I'm going to fast forward again Because shit gets crazier when we break up. So we're back at home now. This is about June, so the wedding was a couple of months ago. We have a fertility appointment for Nick, and this time I'm going with him because I really want to get to the bottom of this. We get to the hospital and he says, honestly, I never envisioned children in my future. After spending time with my sister and new niece, I realised that's not the life that I want for me. I was in shock because we had spoken about that from the beginning, and like, I'm talking about our first date, because as far as I was concerned, sorry, text messages. As far as I was concerned, I told him early on that I didn't want to be in a relationship with someone that didn't want to have children, so I didn't see that as, something that would have longevity. You should date with intention and purpose, otherwise you're wasting your time. From the get-go, he was like, no, that's what I want. And this was way before we were even boyfriend and girlfriend, so early warning, you should ask someone casually what their thoughts are on family, etc., what their values are, but ask them casually. Don't tell a guy or a girl what your biggest dreams and desires are too quickly, because if they have dark intentions, all they have to do is promise you everything that you want, so you think you're both on the same page until you find out that you're not. So yeah, that was a huge shock to me, that in fact he'd gone from what I thought was wanting children and a family and the dream that we had been working for. Actually, I never wanted kids. And I said, like, if this was a doubt that you had, or like you're saying you never wanted kids, why didn't you say that before we got invested in each other in the beginning? And he said, well, you would have never have married me if you knew that that's not what I wanted. So they are willing to say anything to get what they want. Your needs, your desire, the fact that women are not fertile forever, they don't, you do not matter. You're a thing to them, an appliance, a toaster, a means to an end, a vessel to use. You mean nothing. At this point, I felt sick, because this guy he had made so many posts and captions on social media about how cute our kids would look. He spoke about it with our parents, we're going to have beautiful caramel babies. He made loads of references to wanting kids, and to find out that was all a lie, and that he was so casual in saying that, I felt sick, I felt angry. I started smoking again. I started drinking half a bottle of wine every night, pretty much 4 or 5 nights a week. Our communication went into breakdown. I didn't know what to do. I spoke to my cousin about this, my older cousin, who lives in America, because she's been married for years. Our mums are actually identical twins, so she's kind of a sister anyway. She said maybe he was struggling with the idea of, having mixed race children, because it is a thing. And then, I thought about it, because he had made a few comments about black men, and he had said this in front of his whole family over dinners, and his dad pulled him up on his racism, big time. So if you think someone can't hold racist views but date out of their race, you're wrong. You haven't been to Thailand. The way some of these expats speak about Thai women, or Thai people in general, but will still use their bodies because of the exchange rates and taking advantage of poverty, it's crazy. It is based on white supremacy. And all of these things come out when they no longer give a fuck about protecting your feelings. And at this point, we've been legally married too long for me to annul. So I'm kind of thinking, at this point, there might be something going on with him. We need counselling. He's not particularly religious. Sorry, another message. He's not a religious person at all, but I am, and I do believe in marriage, and I made a vow. So as much as I was feeling a certain way, I couldn't leave without attempting to fix it, and I knew I couldn't fix it without help. So I wanted to get relationship counselling. He was dead against it because he said he did not want a therapist digging into his head, digging into his thoughts. He finds it intrusive, and like it's just there was no way he was going to do it. So I wanted a divorce because there was like no way out, and like he didn't take it seriously. But how could I stay in a situation where I was depressed, financially worse being with him, my mental health was declining, and I was still putting on a front for the whole world, and it just felt hopeless. I just thought, you're better off on your own, and you can, whatever, start again. And at that time, I didn't quite realise what kind of person I was dealing with. And I thought, with some time, I could, start again. I didn't realise there would be a lot of therapy and trust and rebuilding involved in starting again. But that's for the third part. So yeah, I filed for divorce, and he decides that he wants to try therapy, but I needed to cancel the divorce, and he was just going through some things. Let's talk about it. The only reason he wanted to, he was willing to go to therapy was because divorce meant he would lose his British visa. So I cancelled the divorce because I went through the bit where you get the application through your email. We have a joint business account, email account, and bank account. So I filed through there and put the initial application fee through there. So he saw it. I thought he would be happy. He wasn't. He was willing to try from there. Surprise, surprise. So we went to counselling, and that was the beginning of the end, thank God. The therapist asked us to write a list of things privately of what we loved about them and what we didn't like about them. And I had gotten to the point where I literally could not think of a thing that I loved about him anymore. The person that I met that brought me out of my shell, that, cared for me, was ambitious and hardworking, romantic, expressions of love, all of that was gone and replaced with someone who was volatile, didn't take my needs into account. I was constantly walking on eggshells. Sexually, he had gone from, us pleasing each other to only wanting to do things that were sadistic and humiliating in nature, or involved pegging, so me doing him, which to me, I'm open, because in a marriage you've committed to, I believe, try things that make your partner happy, but that was very much a one-way thing, and he didn't keep himself in a hygienic manner in which that would be okay for me to do. So it was pretty disgusting, and I also derived no pleasure from it. So I was getting literally nothing in terms of the relationship. I just wanted out. Carry on with the therapy sessions as Nic no longer wants to go, which is a good thing because I needed them. I needed that clarity of thought and to be able to talk to someone who was impartial and to clarify my thoughts, because when you're living or in a relationship with a narcissist, you do get brain fog, and that's from all of the gaslighting and the strange things that happen that you can't really explain, that they're working their evil behind the scenes. He had gone off to Turkey to get his teeth done with some of the proceeds from our business. So at this point, our all of the hard work that we've put into our business is going well, and we're making about between 5 and 7k per month from coaching, which is fantastic because the previous year we've been making 1,000 to 2,000, and I needed that space. And in those sessions, you know, my therapist was saying that she has seen people with certain symptoms of narcissistic abuse. Now, I didn't clock on at this point because I assumed by narcissist, because Nic is a narcissist, as in he has a narcissistic personality, like he's very kind of arrogant, into himself, his image, his looks. But I didn't know that it was also a mental disorder. It's a personality disorder, and it's a cluster B personality disorder, like sociopathy, so sociopaths, psychopaths, borderline personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. They are in a cluster of personality disorders, and they are very dangerous people. They live among us, they look very much like us, they are incredibly charming and resourceful people. Usually a lot of them are either successful or they're in jail. They make great surgeons, great doctors, great lawyers, great CEOs, high percentage in their politicians. So you wouldn't necessarily know what you're dealing with, because you tend to think of characters like that as just being in movies. No. This is 10% of the population. You've probably dealt with one and not realised. So at this point, I still didn't quite know what I was dealing with, but I was about to learn. So I'm going to leave this bit here so we can focus on the crazy of the breakup when I finally start to get my head around what the is going on.